Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Places We'll Go show. Now today, we've got the wonderful Zoe Harris on the show. Welcome, Zoe.
Hi, morning.
Good morning. Now, Zoe is an absolutely incredible marketer with over 20 years of experience. She's currently the Chief Marketing Officer and on the exec board of a travel company called On the Beach, which is a formidable player and disruptor in the travel industry. Now, prior to this, Zoe was the CMO of Go Compare. I've got to be honest, I can't kind of help but picture that opera singer in the background, the Go Compare man. But nevertheless, and she was also Group Marketing Director of Trinity Mirror Group PLC. She's also had roles at WCRS, and I think it's going to be one of the coolest jobs in the world that you've had before as the Director of Marketing at MTV. Love to hear a little bit more about that as well. Now, Zoe is a regular on the Power 100 top marketers in the UK. So today, we really get to hear from someone who is at the top of her game. Now, beyond her work, she's a member of WACL and also a volunteer at Stockwell Guides. Now, before I hand over, just one thing to note is when I was doing my homework, I came across a quote from you, Zoe, where you said that you're not afraid to challenge the London bubble thinking, which really caught my eye. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. So look, really welcome to the show, Zoe. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and it's nice to have an opportunity to look back and talk about some of those things that you've just touched on in the introduction.
Well, great to have you on, Zoe. So much to cover. Let's just get started by, how's 2024 going? We find ourselves in April. Where did January, February, March go? But how's the year going so far?
It's going really well. So because I work for a holiday company, we have a real seasonality to our business and to our work. So obviously January is peak, or actually from Boxing Day, about 9 p.m. on Christmas Day, actually, when everyone's had enough turkey and starting to row with everybody, is when we start to sell holidays for the year ahead. So we have a real kind of build up to that, and then we trade through peak, and then you get into a late market. So there's always a lot going on and a real sense of where we are in the year. But this year, we've kind of realised that we're never not in peak, because as soon as one peak's done, the next one's just around the corner. So just as you're going, phew, that's been amazing, aren't we all brilliant? You're going, shit, 6 months to the next peak, all these things we need to get done in a relatively short space of time. So yeah, 2024 is off to a good start, a real realisation this year of never not peak. And kind of that means that for us and the team, we're always thinking about this year, next year, and kind of that longer term marketing stuff as well.
Well, it sounds very much like a fast-paced retail sort of type environment where you're sort of always on and kind of rolling with the tide, as it were, in that respect. How do you cope with it? How do you deal with it? What's the vibe like in the team?
Yeah, I think I was going to say by coincidence, maybe it's not, but my very first job after university was with a tour operator called Air Tours, which doesn't even exist anymore, but it was huge at the time. And because that was my first job, I just thought that's what marketing teams were like. But you were always trading hard, very commercial, very concerned about the stock you had to shift now, looking ahead to the summer, or to, for us, October half term or next peak. So it's nice to be back with something that was where I started out. Yeah,
well, if we think about the travel industry, we actually had Toby Horry. I'm sure you know Toby well, Toby from TUI, on a few weeks back. And he stated the bleeding obvious, which I'd never really thought of, which is that, nearly all of our photo memories are of holidays. And he talked about they create firework moments or something of that language, which was, a really nice way of putting it. So you're in a pretty cool business where you're giving people, you said, it's the escape from the 9 p.m. Christmas Day, whatever it is. You're putting joy into people's lives. So tell us a bit about what it's like to be in an industry which is doing that, something so positive.
Yeah, I suppose we have a slightly different view in a way, which is we're really mindful that our customers put their own joy in their holiday. They don't need to be told how to holiday. They're going to have their best time anyway, right? And actually for us, I would say our challenge is, as thinking about different businesses within travel, that when people come back from their holiday, they have had a brilliant time, more or less, no matter who they've gone with. It's very rare that someone comes back from a holiday and goes, that was a bit crap, right? Especially type holidays we do, which is a beach holiday, family holiday, looked forward to all year, counted down to. And so it's the the families that are making their own joy, or the couples, you know how to go on holiday, you know how to have a good time. What we think at On the Beach is our job is to enhance the anticipation of the holiday, the looking forward to bits, because that's where we can really add value. Once the customer's on holiday, they're gonna, have a blast. So that's how we think about it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We're really clear, and you might know from our advertising, we know that holiday's the best time of people's years, and we're really privileged to work with that with customers. And so for us, the other element is to make sure things don't go wrong, because people can't have another holiday, right? One, they can't afford it, but it's not even about the money. They haven't got the time to go on holiday again. Like, the worst thing is, we might come on to some of this stuff, but I was really excited about doing a guarantee, weather guarantee, that if it rains on your holiday, we'll give you another free holiday. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. It's so good. I'm so clever. And high-fiving around the office. And you talk to customers about it, and they are absolutely horrified at the idea, right? Because at the point of booking and thinking about the holiday, the last thing they want to be thinking about is it pissing it down all week, right? That is a disaster. And it's not about us giving the money back, because, you can't just get another week off work, can you? So it has to be right, and it has to be right that time. And at the point of booking, it's a big purchase, so there is some kind of fear of getting it wrong, for sure. But it's a moment of just pure anticipation and excitement. And so, especially for our customers who kind of save up for their holidays, budget for their holidays, it's the big thing of the year. So yeah, it is a privilege, and definitely something I feel very responsible about not getting wrong. Mark, I've just realised the way you're sitting. I don't know what it says on the wall behind you, but I can just see you, and I've made up the rest. Curious, okay.
It's a great quote. I mean, for people who can't see this, it's I actually got it from Greg Levine, a lovely guy. I have no special talent. I'm only passionately curious. Albert Einstein. There you go. It's usually hidden. There we go.
I'll tell you, it's funny.
See you, I saw, and I imagined the rest, and I was like, oh god.
Maybe worthwhile moving ahead.
It's when your ears are actually, the R looks like an N. Yes. Yeah, there we go.
I tell you, it's so funny though. I was actually listening back to our episode with Seth Godin just yesterday, and he was talking about, and we asked him a question around skill versus talent, and the extent to which he believed that he had a certain amount of talent, or does. And he said he certainly doesn't have any amount of talent, and it's all around the role of hard work and curiosity and constant, constant tenacity and persistence that he's been able to make it the way he has. So there we go. Albert Einstein and Seth Godin, similar.
Two in one, yeah. I think he's wrong though, isn't he? Because I feel very lucky with some of the natural things that you come with in your brain, and you don't know how they're there. And then you sometimes there's certain people you want to be in a meeting with, aren't you? Because their brain works differently. And it's like they might not have the right idea, say, but they might give you a springboard to something else. So it's a combination of the two, isn't it? We're one of those people that just think in a different way. And it's that diversity of thought you want to get in a room sometimes to come up with good ideas. But no amount of training. Well, if it was all about the training, we'd all think the same way probably, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think what he was trying to hang his hat on was perhaps a little bit of there is always an element of natural talent that plays in all of us, and we all have certain key innate skills and abilities. But what he didn't want, I guess, to call out was for us to sort of, get lazy because we feel we've got this talent and we're not able to then hone it in and really sort of work towards kind of enhancing it. I think that's where he was potentially coming at it.
Yeah.
We have totally digressed here. There we are. Thanks, Zoe. There we go. We're going into deep and meaningful territory here. But Zoe, I wanted to come back to On the Beach a little bit. And I think marketing, and more people say marketing is all about making choices. And for us, choices are around branding, positioning, and the customer segments that we go after, the propositions that we develop as a consequence. And clearly, On the Beach has made certain choices about where you're going to play, what kind of customers you're going to go after, what type of experiences you are going to give to those customers when they're there. And I'd love just to hear your thought in and around how you're making strategic choices in an organization like that, I guess with the hook of the brand and hook of that position. But how do you make those strategic choices, and how did On the Beach come around as a strategic choice in the first instance?
So I think when I started out in marketing, I was, working on briefs and doing ads, and I I realised that I wasn't really sure what I was doing. And by that, I mean, when I looked back, I was just kind of drifting along. And, you know, when you're given like, oh, can you go and brief the agency on this campaign or that campaign? And I was doing that's fine. And then I read Eating the Big Fish by Adam Morgan. And it was like, it's about 3 years into my career, maybe. It's like this light bulb moment where I was like, oh. And for me, that just is when a bit to that earlier thing about your natural talent, the way you're programmed, and then some theory to go with it. And I went, that's what I want to do. So that idea of working for brands that are more ambitious than their budgets, because then I had a purpose, which was my job is to have disproportionately effective advertising by taking some risks and sacrificing and overcommitting. And if you haven't read the book, it's amazing. And still that there's others too, which are good, but that one still for me is the best to kind of get the principles of it. And so then through my career, it was about working for brands that were in those situations from a budget perspective, because you have permission to do more. So you start from a better place, because as soon as if you can convince people that you have to take risk and you've got less budget in order to get the same returns, just to get the same returns is the bigger fish who are trying to eat your lunch, or the sharks, whatever you want to call them, then you're sort of halfway there to doing better work or more interesting work. It's a bit subjective, right? Like I know other peers who love working just for big budgets, so that's cool. Like I worked on Sky once, and when I was at WCRS, and when you were briefing the media really for that, you kind of, for media, could just go, one of everything, please, right? We want to be on every poster, every ad spot, every channel. And I'm exaggerating, but it kind of felt like that. And all the ads were about talent. Who's the most famous person? Like, we'll have Jennifer Aniston, Bruce Willis, you know. So that's great. And some people love that. But for me, it was a bit like, oh, it's a different type of marketing. I like the stuff where you've got nothing and you have to make something from nothing, because then it's all about ideas and creativity. So on the beach, that's how we think. You know, we're up against TUI, and you said you were speaking about to them a few weeks ago in Jet2. We are in a challenger space where we are filling the gap between an online travel agent, so a booking website like Love Holidays or Booking.com, and a tour operator like TUI and Jet2. So how can we do the best of both? The choice, flexibility and value of an online travel agent, and the brilliant holiday experience where nothing goes wrong, that consumers think that they can only get from TUI or Jet2, or some consumers think that. So that's what we're doing it on the beach. And then because we have less budget and we're less well known, and then how do we do that in a distinctive way? And so, yeah, we absolutely tap into the joy of a beach holiday. There is nothing better. We know our customers, we say they don't squeeze every bit of joy out of it, they suck it out. So that's in our heads. And then within our advertising and our comms, we think a lot about how we can, firstly, from a tangible perspective, add value to that holiday. What can we do around it? So if you book a 4 or 5 star holiday with us, then we give you free airport lounge access. So the crappy bit of the airport we make better. And democratization of, you know, things that only Emirates customers might expect to have, as an example, through to the way we communicate that. So being really single-minded in our creative, purposefully polarizing, and then riding out the wave of negativity on Twitter, feedback from my mum, feedback from my bosses, mother-in-law, all of that stuff that I'm sure in marketing we're all familiar with. And just to kind of, and not always easy, hold your nerve, and if you've done your homework and the right stuff, then hopefully you'll get the right results at the end of it.
Love it. More ambitious than their budgets. I mean, it says so many things to me. It says low ego, because many marketers, you know, including myself, you know, bigger budgets is perhaps, you know, what's been alluring up to a point. And I've never heard anybody express so cleanly that therefore the type of businesses that they would go and work for. That's cool. I mean, Renegade, Gorilla, David and Goliath come to mind. I'm curious, where do you think that comes from? That desire to work in that type of business and environment?
I think it is around the desire to do things differently and to outthink competitors. And it's to that point where which I talked about when I started, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I'd be writing a brief for an agency, and it would be the same brief that anybody would have written. There's nothing wrong with my brief about the print ads or the, you know, it's low level spend campaigns. But I was just like, I didn't know what I was adding to it. And actually now, and then from reading Eating the Big Fish, I knew what I was adding. It was the direction of our ambition, the way we judge creative work, the sacrifice and overcommitment thing. You know, what are we not going to do? What are we going to go all in on? And it just gives you the framework. And in a way, I suppose that's what the Seth quote was about. I feel like sometimes I'm just following a list of rules that someone's giving me, Adam Morgan's giving me. And I'm like, what am I really bringing to the party? You know, I suppose in a different way. But those things and that structure, and at university I did chemistry. Maybe it's a bit of that where, you know, you're very logical, and so to go, okay, I've got you know, this framework. What's our lighthouse identity? How can we really play in a different game to our competitors? And you're exactly right. I'll just diss the TUI guys. Jet2 say the same. We're about memories. I'm like, that's every holiday company, and that's everyone that goes on holiday. Whether you book it yourself, the airline, the hotel, everything's about memories. So, you know, yeah, they're right, but that's a generic of the category. No one's owning that. You can't own that because, yeah. Anyway, so I think that's the thing that really helps me, stands apart personally, and then the businesses and the teams that I work with.
All power to you on that. I'm just going one quick follow up with this. And where do you think those renegade instincts come from? I mean, I'm thinking pre-chemistry, pre-Eating the Big Fish. There's obviously something wired into you, which is, you know, fighting that type of fight you choose to fight.
No, I don't know. My dad used to say balls out, right? Like when I was a bit scared to do something, and he was he didn't work in marketing at all, but so maybe it was that, and I have that in my head sometimes when I'm feeling scared. Oh, you know, a bit of oh, fuck it, balls out, just do it, which is probably very genderist language now, isn't it, to use? But maybe it's a sense of that, and maybe that thing about not understanding what I was adding to the process, like it just felt pointless to me before, and not that it was when I was writing those other briefs, but just I didn't understand, and I was bored, I wasn't fulfilled, or I wasn't using I didn't feel like I was using my brain, right? Like, so maybe that.
Zoe, on that note, I guess if anybody else is listening in and feeling that same sense of, I don't know what I'm adding to the process, is it a balls out moment for them? Just do it. Just do something different. Or what's your advice there? You've been in those shoes.
Well, something else someone said to me is when I was at Go Compare, and they were talking about meetings, and they said it was about the kind of the culture and how we were operating meetings, and they said nobody wants to be the lettuce in a burger, right? Which is the bit nobody wants. And they said if you're in the meeting and you're adding no value, or you're in the meeting and you're getting no value, leave the meeting. Doesn't matter whether you've been there 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Now, look, I think that's quite rude, and maybe not the type of place I want to work either. But there's something about that too, isn't there? Like there is lots of time when you're either in a job or a moment or a meeting or a project where you go, what am I actually adding to this? And I suppose it's just about being honest with yourself sometimes, isn't it? Because life's probably more fulfilling when you're not the lettuce. And so, oh God, don't be a lettuce. And so maybe that's just a thing about your own enjoyment of work, and making sure that you're getting your own personal buzz from what you're doing as well. But it's subjective, isn't it? Like I'm not saying everyone has to think like that or feel like that. It was just how I felt when I started out.
You've reminded me of, I don't know if you remember it, the pot noodle creative, where the pot noodles fought the salads in a pub fight. It actually was my best mate and best man who did the creative for that back in the day at pot noodle. Now, Zoe, you talked about purposely polarizing and therefore having to hold your nerve. That to me talks a bit about bravery, but also a bit of stakeholder management. Tell us some of the maybe one or two crunchy moments where you've had to hold your ground.
Well, on the beach would be an example. So we did the ad, and if you haven't seen it, we use Christmas music talking about the most wonderful time of the year to flog summer holidays. We cast a family that is not the typical holiday family. They're normal sized. The kids are not nice to each other. They are not skipping down the beach as the sun sets, all of that. And so we did the ad, and it took a bit of selling in internally anyway. And isn't it just going to be annoying? And that's the point. We haven't got much money. We need to be a bit irritating. Bear in mind, I've come from Go Compare, so I knew music, sonic triggers, irritating are good things. I believe good, effective things. And then you have that moment when you start trading. So it's Christmas Day and it's, 9 p.m. and the sales start ticking up and your ads broke, a few days before. So that's looking positive. But at the same time, what you're hearing on Twitter and phone calls into the customer service and letters into my boss about how dreadful our advertising and we should be ashamed. So that's a hold your nerve moment, because now you're going, oh, have I made the wrong call here? Are we just alienating everybody? And by hold my nerve, I mean literally till the ad tracker, which is in March. So pull the ad tracker forward as much as you can, but you've put enough money behind it just to And anyway, when it came back, it was all like amazing. Like the average person outside the London bubble and the Twitterati and all of that, going, that's like my family. That's how I feel about going on holiday. Oh my God, I get a free lounge. Can't believe it. So that was all brilliant. But yeah, you've got that hold your nerve moment where people are saying on Twitter, whoever came up with that idea should be shot. I would never go on holiday with people like that. And of course, that's what everyone's seeing. And you have to go into the office every day with a big smile, confident. No, ignore that. It's going to be brilliant. And then fingers crossed that it is. And I suppose, to your point, that first bit is stakeholder management. So being really clear with people before you even brief the agency on the creative, we need something different and disruptive. And by the way, trying to say what that means, because everybody's idea of disruptive is quite different. Like some people have, it's like a slightly different edit of your old ad versus, I don't know, the type of work that Brewdog would do, say. So that bit, and then through it, saying this is why this should work. Here's the due diligence we've done on it ourselves, and then a bit of styling it through, isn't it? And hustle whilst it's not looking good for the first few weeks. And look, I had the benefit through that where trading was good. Had trading been poor, even just because it was a tough year, that would have been 10 times more difficult. When the numbers are coming in, no one really cares, do they? In the same way. So that's the other bit, isn't it? A bit of luck and timing and hoping things fall your way. And they don't always, right? But on this occasion, the holidays were selling, the market was quite buoyant, the ad was resonating. So, but yeah, that would be an example. And yeah, you need to be quite thick-skinned at those moments.
I can only imagine. It's these are things that potentially make and break organizations' performance, certainly quarterly performance and the like.
But it's your own credibility, isn't it? I think that's the thing that you take risks, and some things will come off in some way, and you've got a hit rate. And when you're new in a job as well, or newish, then you need a hit sooner rather than later. So it's credibility really, and trying to judge the timing of those things correctly.
Totally. And in addition to that CMO role that you have, you are also a part of the executive board on the beach. And I wonder to what extent does that change the overarching dynamic when you are trying to launch, say, marketing campaigns, and you're obviously on the board, having to justify what you're doing and sitting in there when everyone's watching that 360-degree review of that ad and feedback and the like. Does it add an additional layer of pressure?
I think I don't think it adds pressure. It's helpful, I guess, to see how the campaigns and marketing and effectiveness and spend is judged by the board. So I suppose pre me being on the board, so I've been on the board for about 18 months, my CEO would have to have gone and fielded lots of those questions. So obviously I would have gone and done the set pieces, here's how it's all going, but just the ongoing month to month updates. Oh God, the boards, I've just seen this on Mumsnet, or my mother has called and said this. So you can just handle those things in the moment rather than them and be part of those conversations. So that's really helpful, I think, to be more across it.
Yeah. I'm interested to know what some of the sliding doors moments have been. Tremendously colourful. WCRS I loved working with WCRS back in the day, 118. So you've had some great fun there, agency side, client side, different sectors. What have some of the sliding doors moments been?
I think, do you mean in terms of career choices more broadly, or?
Well, I don't like to lead the witness on this because I usually find this quite an interesting question, how it's interpreted. So for me, it would be, I was made redundant 4 times, and that really defined the arc of my career. For others, it will be, a comment. It will be. I'm going to leave it open. What have some of those sliding doors moments been?
So I guess I feel like it's an interesting question because I don't feel like I've had any, right? So I think I'm quite, and it's not that I haven't. So I got fired from a job as an example. So I suppose in your case that was a sliding door. So, I think sliding doors in my mind are more when you have a choice about which way to go. Whereas when I got fired, I wanted to get a new job as quickly as possible. And so that was quite again, like a black or white thing for me. I wasn't overthinking it really. I just didn't want to be not working. I think sliding doors moments are more when you're not happy with something and it feels wrong in your tummy, and you do something about it or don't do something about it. Particularly, I found that when I'm new in jobs and you inherit a lot, at what point do you, because it's annoying when someone's new, isn't it? And they rip up everything that's gone before. How long do you live with it? At what point do you say, take ownership of it? And how much do you live with somebody else's work? Because ultimately you're going to be accountable for it. So I was at the Daily Mirror and we were working with an agency on the new proposition for the Daily Mirror. And it was like a branding agency. And they had some proposition, I can't even remember what it was, which probably tells you how uninteresting and vanilla it was. And then they had some beautiful words to describe it, which kind of everyone had fallen for because it was really lovely, crafted written copy. And it just wasn't sitting right with me. And I suppose I don't call them sliding door moments, I call them fuck it moments, right? And I just go, oh, fuck it, right? Because I had an old boss that said to me once, you've got to back yourself. And so it's that thing, I might not be right, but I'd rather be right on my own decision and what I believed than wrong on something because I didn't speak up. And so I still have those as a sense checkpoint, my checkpoint. And I say to my team, bring me ideas that will keep me awake at night. And then they bring you an idea that will keep you awake at night. And you go, oh, do I want to be kept awake at night, really? And my check for that, because I want to embrace that thinking and those ideas, is would I be happy to be fired for this idea? And I don't mean literally I'm going to be fired, although I have been fired, so I have been through that. But it's a good thing to say. And by that, I mean, if it went wrong and I lost my job, would I go, well, I believed in it and it didn't pay off, but it felt right. It felt worth the risk to the business and the risk to me personally. And I find that really useful just to, sounds wanky, but like dial in with myself and see how good is this idea? Is it just a bit kind of, sometimes you have to, because you're trying to do things differently and you get those ideas and they're just different for the sake of it. They're not right or strategically right or just good. Sometimes they're just a bit shocking and actually, not the things you want to do. So I guess, maybe less sliding doors in the way I feel about those things. But that idea of taking those moments and using it as an opportunity to go on and do something brilliant rather than taking what might feel like the easier way at the time, but will end up being something you have to live with that you don't want to live with.
I think it's just, perhaps all encapsulating of the type of leadership style you bring, the type of career choices that you're making. Would that be fair to say? Yeah,
I think so. And definitely I'd like to give the team and the people I work with the same permission to be able to do that kind of thinking. And like we said at the start, you don't want all those types of brains in the room together, right? You need the whole range of different ways of approaching things. So I guess that's the other thing, that I'm mindful of not having a whole team of renegade thinkers coming up with bonkers ideas, which are just going to, end up with the board in prison or something. So it's a balance. But yeah, definitely. And I hope, I think every job, and I'd say to the team, is your stepping stone to the next job. What do you really want to achieve? What's your CV story from here? What do you want to have achieved in this chapter of your career? And to try and make it a bit defining and differentiating for you personally as well. So yeah, I think it goes through the work you do and the way that you personally run your career as well.
So you mentioned just there about, best not to have the board in prison. And in the green room, we were talking a little bit about, some of the slightly more onerous duties of having, board papers for the governance cycle. So it's not all like fun and cartwheels and all that sort of stuff. So how do you sort of manage your energy through the, some of the things which are more necessity and less about creativity?
I think it's a balance, isn't it? Because you can't be having good creative ideas all the time either. But there's times when you're in the headset, like sometimes you've been mulling over something and you can't come up with anything, and you go for a run and suddenly the idea's there. Or I love it. Sometimes I go to bed and I think, oh, maybe I'll have something in the morning. And sometimes you wake up and you have got something, you go, oh, phew. So I think it's a balance of those things. I'm really hot on effectiveness and showing the impacts of what we're doing. It's back to my chemistry degree probably. So I actually have as much energy and enthusiasm for that as I do the other bits. And the other bits are a bit, it's about budgets that mean we're more ambitious than our budgets. It's like you have to prove that as well, and you have to demonstrate that, and you have to show the growth, and you have to be. I think one of the things that people might sometimes say about me is that I'm a bit negative, and I always say, oh, I'm always surprised to hear that because I'm like hugely positive, but I like to look at bad news as a way to glass half full, in order to, again, back to that thing about springboard to bigger ideas. So if we just say how all the things which are currently challenges for us, what's the times 10 thing to fix those? So I think that's the thing I have to be mindful about, the energy I can give because for me that works, but for other people they can go, oh my God, it's just depressing, like all those things. Whereas I'm like, no, it's inspiring because now we have to outthink those things. And so I think that's the thing with leadership style, isn't it? It's like, and managing energy is remembering the thing that works for you and inspires you isn't the same for everyone else. And I'm not always brilliant at that. So I think that's the bit that I'll take away from this conversation, actually, to manage my energy levels and my way of approaching things with more empathy to different styles for other people.
As the ultimate challenger mindset, I have to sort of think to perhaps whether you see, I'd love to get your take on whether you see AI as the ultimate opportunity or challenge, and perhaps a bit of both. But does it enable a disruptor, a challenger, to be more effective in the way that you do things?
I guess my sense is that AI is going to be a generic commodity for all of us. And so the question is, there's two things, isn't there? One is you need to embrace it, because if you don't, you'll get left behind and the harder to play catch up. And then it's working out where you can use it uniquely and how you can bring your own insight and data and first party and vision and all the rest of it to AI. So I think it's kind of two things, right? Like, it will change, I think, our industry and definitely how we deal with customers and the customer experience. That's an opportunity from the beach. If you think back to me talking about TUI and Jet2, we've got thousands of people placed all over Spain, Greece, whatever, versus our view of how do we, through technology, deliver a better customer experience. That's exciting for us. So AI is exciting. It opens doors. It's going to be an enabler for the things that we've talked about doing, but we're going, how do we do it? So we're excited, but I think not complacent, because it's going to be available. It's going to be affordable for people, for lots of our competitors too. So we really have to think cleverly about how we use it and where it fits within our overall product and customer experience.
Yeah. On AI, I mean, this is a slight detour. We've already digressed once, so why not do it again? I came across suno.com this week, suno.com, and we've been able to write songs for loved ones. I say write songs, you write one sentence. Like my daughter's off to New Zealand for her travels, and it comes up with like a fully orchestrated, composed lyrics, the whole thing, in about 10 seconds. So there's my hot AI tip for the week. Richie?
Okay, I've just written that down. I'm definitely going to check that out later.
It's properly amazing.
You do know that suno is a Hindi word for listen, which is very...
Well, Richie, actually, it came from you, so it was your recommendation. I didn't know that for listen. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to it. So we've talked a lot about. I think you're a very principled person. Came from the beginning, and so what are some of the things that you won't entertain, you won't do, you'll select out of? How do you apply that through into your practice, being very principled?
I think it's, do you mean companies I'd work for, or the type of work that, or either?
Yeah, in life, work, whatever.
So in work, it's about blanding and being vanilla, right? And so, and again, it's the balance, because not everything can be crazy, and not crazy, but, distinctive. Well, that's not true. I would like everything we do to be distinctive and disruptive and living up to the things that, the joy of a beach holiday and exploding that in a way that other holiday brands don't do. I suppose so it's that, and it's knowing when to say, no, go and do that again, versus sometimes you just have to get shit done, right? So I think it's that. And being mindful of not just in the creative work I do, but how I approach work generally, like always pushing to do things differently, whether it's advertising or how we run an exec meeting or where to do an away day, is someone I work for said I was the squeaky wheel. And he said, it's quite hard to be the squeaky wheel all the time. And I was like, oh, bloody hell, I don't want to be the squeaky wheel. That doesn't sound good. Nothing more annoying. And so having to be comfortable with being the squeaky wheel and irritating people and being a pain in the arse, and not always right. Like, do you know what I mean? It's also like, let's say I get my squeaky wheel right 25% of the time. 75%, I'm probably being generous on my marking there, 75% of the time I'm just a pain in the arse. And you have to but I know that my squeaky wheel is my superpower, like my own point of difference. And so I can't squash that completely. But knowing when to be, I've gone too far now, but how squeaky to be and when, I don't always get right. So I think that's probably a thing to navigate as well.
Squeakiness.
There we are.
In levels of squeakiness, I know.
Gosh, I want to turn to something that I think you're really passionate about outside work, which is you're a volunteer at Stockwell Guides. And we talked about this over dinner a few months ago. And I'd love to get your take on why you do it and perhaps what value do you think it has, both for you being there and you getting the give and get of that experience.
Yeah, so I've been doing volunteering at Guides for 25 years. I've got my 25-year badge this year, so very excited. I mean, I know I'm sounding like I'm joking. I am actually very excited by my 25-year badge. I went out to celebrate with friends. I get from it something of... So I don't have children, so for me it's a very different... And if you've got kids, you'll be experiencing it all the time, so it'll be really boring. But for me, just to see in the world from a 10 to 12-year-old girl is fascinating. We always start by saying you have to share some positivity with the group, and you might not have much positivity, but share it today, and next week someone's going to share it back with you. And you have to say the favourite thing from the week. And if you haven't got a favourite thing from the week, the least bad thing. And so you just hear these little snippets of like what's made their week. And so one yesterday was new shin pads for football, as an example. And so it's just, a way of seeing in their lives that's good. And then using your energy in a different way to motivate and get them to do things they don't want to do often. And then to see them feel really good. So a lot of what we do is play games and all of that. But one of the things we did recently was you had to write down a nice sentence about each person in the group and fold the piece of paper over and pass it around. And then you get this piece of paper back and you've got like 10 comments about yourself. It's like a peer-to-peer school report thing. And anyway, yesterday we were saying what was the best thing you did because of program planning. And this was one of the things. And they started talking about where they put these pieces of paper. And one of them sleeps in a bunk bed. She shares a room with her brother and he's really annoying. But she sellotapes it by her bed on the top bunk where he can't get it and blah, blah, blah. And we did this like before Christmas, ages ago. And it's just that thing of realising those small things that stick with people. Loads of stuff they forget, loads of stuff you think they love, they don't. And then the smallest thing, like we did that because I hadn't planned anything, if I'm honest, and all I had in my bag was some pens and paper, so that's why we did that, right? And I'd done it on a training course through work years ago. I thought, see if it works with 11-year-olds. Turns out it does. And so it's those things and like having to think on the spot and again, being a bit creative about what you do. That is, I find challenging in a very different way to work. Yeah, so it's very and like yesterday I was like the board papers. Oh bloody hell! I got guys tonight. Typical. And as I leave there and I'm walking home, I just you feel great, right? Because you've given back. They've made me laugh. I've managed to put together a good night, which doesn't always happen, but when you have those moments, managed to lock up the hall and I think turn off the lights. I've had no complaints. So like that's a successful bit of volunteering for me.
Well, Zoe, I mean, time has whizzed by. What a lovely way to finish. And you talk about small things that stick with people, that's one that will stick with me, because there's a real joy that came across when you talked about your involvement there. So it's my job just to put a bit of a bow on this and pull out some of the key themes for this brilliant session. For me, this has been a masterclass in bravery, clarity, being principled and grounded, but also creating impact and being optimistic through that. So we started about talking about being never not in peak, which I'm sure many people are feeling. That's kind of the way the world seems to be these days. A reframe about how people put their own joy into holiday, which was our first glimpse into the thinking in a counter-intuitive way, zigging when others may be zagging. We talked about how it has to go right because people don't have the time to go for another holiday. So interesting how something about guaranteeing weather wouldn't even wash because it just doesn't play to the right insight. Brains working differently. We had the CU thing moment, if you remember. But I'm going to take away this thing, more ambitious than their budgets. The David and Goliath, or however you will, but very much a lower ego position than many of the people that we have on the show. A desire to do things differently. I think that your father's expression of balls out really does shine through time and again. We talked about being purposefully polarizing, holding your nerve. That was really the black bravery and the clarity for me. Also, a very interesting point about showing confidence to your team. You've just got to, when people see the whites of your eyes and things aren't perfect, you've really got to be that rock that everybody else, gets confidence from. The fuck it moments, backing yourself. Would I be happy to be fired for that? What a great principle. You mentioned about leadership is often giving permission. You're hot on effectiveness, and you use negativity to springboard to big ideas. And it was quite impressive to us, Zoe, where you were reflective in the moment. What I'm going to take away from this conversation is how I manage my energy levels for other people. Not many people sort of have kind of those sort of reflections in these sessions that Richie and I have. You don't want to be vanilla. You don't mind being a squeaky wheel. Got to watch the levels of squeakiness. But anyway, and then the lovely moment around Stockwell guides and the small things that stick with people. You brought a real sparkle of positivity as well as bravery and clarity to this session. So brilliant. Thank you, Zoe.
Oh, thank you. It's been really interesting hour. So I feel like I've just done like This Is Your Life or something. So I'm going to go off and have an amazing day now. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you.